Okay, we must have different ideas on the definition of waste, because I'll give you just two items in the last 4 months. One, we almost paid $85,000 for a pump. After it was stopped, we went out, analyzed it, got back to it, saved $45,000. That would have been $45,000 waste. Second, with backhoe, we almost went with $10,000 a year for 5 years. And now we're in a half's worth of work, and we got an interest rate from 5.5 down to 1.9. And we're paying $6,500 a year, not $10,000 a year. There's $10,000 right there. So, I mean, just two small items. And so, to me, those things wouldn't happen if the budget was tighter. Okay, so that's what I'm saying, is that you keep, and I appreciate Billy. I think he gave exactly what I was looking for. You know, this is my budget, I can cut it, it won't hurt me and it won't hurt the city. That's what I'm looking for.
That's what I'm saying. Well, all three of those cuts were from capital, tax things we wouldn't be putting away, so it wouldn't hurt us today. It would not hurt us today. But in 3 years, when we need to replace a machine and we don't have it, we got to go get a loan, it would cost the city. And that's what I was hearing. I was hearing we could cut fuel, we could cut maintenance, and we can cut capital.
All right. But the majority of my notes is excuses, not this is what we can do to help the city get their roads, get raises for people, put money in the bank so that we can do cash basis, not interest rates.
Right.
Okay? That's how you control it, is with this budget that we're going to do. Okay? If we keep taking, 3%, we just keep putting more money in there, it's just easier to say, okay, I've got this money and I'm going to buy that.
Well, I haven't seen that happen over 4 years. I haven't.
Well, I may have only lived here now for 3 years and been on the council for 1 year, but I grew up here, and I can tell those roads have never improved. Neither is Chubbuck's. They don't put the money into it, and we let it go, and it's just like a pair of shoes. Pretty soon, you could have fixed those shoes, but now you got to buy a whole new pair, which is always twice as expensive. I'm just saying, this is a way that you manage our money. It's not ours, it's the citizens, and if we don't utilize it to the best of our ability, because I get calls all the time, why did we buy that? Why did we do this? Why are we doing that?
Okay, how do you answer? What do you tell them?
If I have a good answer, I've got it. Sometimes I don't.
That's the time to come in and find out, why did we buy it? If we don't need that, why did we buy it? And it is. I totally agree with you that we're tasked with that, to make sure we're not throwing money away. And what I'm saying to you is, I've watched over the last 4 years, the two items that you brought up, those aren't the first two times those kinds of things have happened. And it does. And I've seen that happen more than once, and it is a good thing.
So would you not classify that as waste if those two would have gone through?
They didn't. That's the point. And I've watched those happen more than once.
Okay.
And but what I'm saying is, yeah, if you classify that as waste, it wasn't money spent. It wasn't. And what I'm saying,
why wasn't it spent? It was ready to be approved.
No,
it would have been spent. Yes, no, it was. It got stopped. It got a motion to stop that, look at it, go out and redo it.
Okay.
I mean, it was ready to go, both of them. We were going to sole source the pump. We already had it. The people already had the lease. They asked me, what in the world? We always just send it over there and you guys write us a check. What's the big deal now? So I've got a list. I'll show it to you. I just think the only way that you stop that is you have to tighten your budgets.
Well, and again, that's where we are right now. That's absolutely where we are right now. So that's.
Well, we're still doing an increase. That's not putting a stop to what's going on.
We're putting an increase where?
We're still at a 1.9 if we choose that one. That's still an increase.
Absolutely.
Or we're at 3%.
So you're submitting that your personal budget won't increase at all next year. You're not going to pay any more for fuel. You're not going to pay any more for insurance. You're not going to pay any more.
It's there to pay for.
Pardon me?
It would be there to pay for even if you did zero. That's what I'm saying. Just like Bird did on his analysis, he found $323,000, even with the adjustment of 1 month that Rich has said. What if we had $250,000? It's there. I mean, $250,000 we could give our mayor, who has not had a raise since what, 2007? Very easily could be in there. That's what I mean. But we're saying, no, we can't afford that. We can't afford that so that we can attract people to the city who want good salaries, good benefits. You know? And I'm saying, you know, you don't cut down into employment. You don't touch that. There's an ocean out there, and there's plenty of big fish to pull out to pay for the things that we want without increasing. I would be in favor of a zero.
When you say zero, you're saying zero, stagnant, no more money into the city?
No.
No, he's saying a decrease. I'll go put it up.
When I say no more money,
You're gonna take the same budget that you did last year.
right, which would mean that we wouldn't take the new construction rolls, because we have new buildings that the city can get revenue from, and we have an increase in value. Property values have been moving upwards. That equates to essentially 164,000 that's new revenue. You're saying don't take that 164,000.
No, that's not in that. You get, our budget that we proposed has a 3% increase.
It doesn't. Not the one that we've said we're going to vote for.
That's the public one. And the other one we have is 1.9.
Right.
That's
Right?
I think everybody's been in agreement that we're not doing 3%. Am I wrong in that we said we published 3 because we have to post the maximum,
I'm
and
just
then you
saying,
go down?
if you want 1.9, that's great. I want 0.0. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, and that's why I'm clarifying, because if we do 0.0, then it would drop the levy rate, and we wouldn't bring in that additional 160 some odd thousand, which we had designated all to go to roads. The city would not take that, and then we would go from, I go to the number, it was $500, now the person's gonna pay $491. That's what you're saying.
Right. Well, 491 is 0.9. So it would be less.
No. To get
Sorry, I'll stay
to
down.
get to the 491, it would have to be what you're saying, which is the mill levy goes down, which means there is no increase. To get to where you drop $9 for every 50,000, it would have to go to
482. It'd go to 482 at 0.
Right. Right.
You're saying that's the only thing you'll go for?
No, that's where I want to be. I haven't been convinced to move off of that in this discussion yet.
Well, and one of the things we need to recognize is that the one place we have the slush, we've talked about that, is the streets. And we were at $33,000, and we've determined to put as much as we can into that to make sure. And this idea of getting on a 10-year rotation, so we're doing about 10% of the trees, that's a great goal. That's something all of us ought to be shooting towards getting. And to me, to take this proposed budget makes that a possibility. We're not there yet. At that point, if I'm remembering right, we were right around 170. So that still would be less than we're looking, but it's a step in that direction. It's a step in the direction that we have. And this needs to be part of the discussion. This is something that should rule what we say and do. But we need to recognize that the 3%, if you understand, if you know the history of the 3%, that hasn't always been there, you know. If you know the history of that, the state legislature finally got to the point where it was passed that that's what we were going to do. You could only raise it 3%. That was a cap. You could never go higher than that. You can go lower than that if you want to. You don't go higher than that. Previous to that, most budgets were coming out substantially higher than that every year, substantially higher than that. So that 3% cap was put on for that very reason. But each year that you don't take that 3%, there's a compounding experience there. And our county, if you go look at the history of Bannock County, they had a period of time where the county commission decided that they wouldn't take that 3%. Well, it cost us big time, and all of a sudden one year they went ahead and took all of the what are the funds called? Foregone. And our taxes went up substantially. You see, again, that isn't money that's just there magically, but it's money that's available to them to use if they want to. But it caused the mill levy to go up substantially. And it cost them, but the bottom line is as I helped them with some of those budgets during that time, it cost them more than just those 2 or 3 years. It cost them 10 and 12 years down the road. Some of the new county commissioners who were trying to work with that budget recognized that part of the reason that they were having shortfalls everywhere is because those 3% hadn't been taken for about 4 or 5 years in a row. That the compounding experience with that made all of those funds go to the point where they weren't paying their bills. They weren't being able to pay what was coming into the state, to the county. That's the reason they, in their opinion that year, they had to take the foregone amount. They had to in order to pay the bills. So even though that can't be the driving force, it's something we need to take into consideration. Part of our stewardship is to look to the future. What kind of a future do we want to see for Chubbuck? And I get it. When you're in a depressed time, it's difficult to do that. You're thinking, you know what, we're trying to get by today. But we can't ignore it. We can't ignore it. Our hope is that things will turn and that one day things will start prospering again in the city. Are we going to be ready for that? Are those things going to be in place?
But Chubbuck didn't do that. They went through the Depression from 2008 to now, at 3%, 3%, 3%,
No, they
2%, 3%, 3%. That's what
One year we took,
on the,
I've been
you
here
have that
4
on the
years.
budget.
1 year we took 0, 1 year we took 1, and 1 year we took 2. That's 3% in 4 years.
Yeah, we didn't take 3.
Every
I-
year, hold on.
I don't
We
remember
had it
last
on
time.
a chart, and it went back 3, 3, 3, 3, whatever number
I
of
think
years
you're
we
thinking
had.
of raises. No,
I don't remember the last time the city of Chubbuck took the 3%.
Every year we've proposed
Yes.
the max.
Every
Every
year
year
we've had the
we've
3%.
published
That's pretty
a
standard.
3%.
The idea there is you can go lower than that, you can't go a penny higher than that. You set that published budget at something that won't work, you're just in trouble. You can't go a penny higher. That's the reason. It's always been published as 3%. I don't remember the last time it was taken. We'd have to go back, and it hasn't been while I've been around.
Okay, well, Rich has got it, so if he can find it, we'll see it.
But again, that's something that you do need to take into consideration, is that it will have a compounding effect to your future.
Okay, you know, for me to be convinced, I would take it 3% if it all went to roads and salaries, literally. I don't mind that, but
I hear that
we've got that
discussion.
$146,000 out there. I'm not guaranteed by anything where that's gonna go. I don't want another
Well, that's-
wild
but that's
spending
where-
project going on.
I thought that's why we demanded that it have its own separate line item, which means they can't take it elsewhere.
And that's something, and that's a good discussion. It is, absolutely. When we determine that that's what it's got to be almost dedicated funds, if not dedicated funds. That's the intent. That's sort of, I hear what you're saying there. I would agree with that.
I'll get that for you. I don't have that here.
Okay.
So I'll get that for you though, a history of it. I know that the raises were 3. They were 3 and then they went 0, 1, 2, 0. And I put that together, but I'll put something together.
Last year, I know we didn't take it. You and I both voted no.
Right, that was the 2.
But the year before that, they didn't take 3 either, and I want to say I still voted.
I'm pretty sure I know where that chart is. And if-
Yeah,
And we may-
I'm
I'm-
keep looking.
We will, and I may be looking at some different things too, because there's 2 or 3 things that we talk about in there, and it may be something I'm looking at differently. But,
There was a year where we took an amount and then we took the foregone. So there was a year where we didn't take the 3, and then the following year, we took less than 3, but we did take the foregone amount, which would mean that by the second year, then that year, yes, there was a 3%, but it was a year delay.
I hear you. I do. I get it. And like I say, it's easy to sit here and say, well, on the 50,000 taxable, it's only $558 a year. I get it. To some people, $558 a year. Where's that going to come from? I understand that. Believe me, I've dealt with that over the years. So
They just want to see something for their money.
Absolutely.
They will spend the money if it's worth it. People that have talked to me don't feel they're getting their money's worth for what they're spending to live in Chubbuck. So we need to change that attitude, and how do we do that? That's what I'm looking for. What's our
Well,
solution?
I don't believe that
What's-
that's a general attitude. I don't know sure who you're talking to, but I talk to people who believe they are getting the bang for their buck that told me that. It's not that I don't hear complaints, I do, but I hear I think I hear more positive comments than negative comments. But they certainly are out there, there's no doubt about it. But I would disagree with that. I don't think the general populace has been happy with what they're getting.
It was
We
2
should
for
have
the
a
last 2 years.
Do what?
It was 2 for the last 2 years.
Okay.
So in 2011 and 2012, it was 2. Before that, it was 3. Sorry, that was on a different spreadsheet. But that's what it was. It was 3 in 10, 2 in 11, 2 in 12.
So in the budget, current operating budget has been 1.8 million. I'll use a round number. Rich, between Percy, Power, Health, and the raises, what is that total going to cost us?
It was, I believe, 320. There we go. Yeah, 320, about 324. That might be $1,000.
At 1.8 million, a 15% reduction or reallocation, that would be $270,000. So in the budget that would be at a 1.9% increase on the budget would leave the mill levy neutral. That still wouldn't cover, I mean, essentially we've trimmed over 15% to deal with the Percy increase, the power increase, the health, and to provide a raise. Do you feel that there's still more than that in that 1.8 million operating?
If Mr. Burke can find $323,000 in one department, yes.
Well, that's not
There's
what
some
I'm
trouble
saying.
with that
I would
number.
say
If
that's-
you're gonna hang your hat there, I will
Okay,
go through those
what do you want to
numbers.
drop, 1 month? Okay, 250,000?
Well, there's some assumptions as well that need to be looked at. We'll look at each month's revenue stream
Okay.
and expense stream.
Tell
because
that my
that's-
hat is hung on that number.
Okay,
That's just one department.
but he has no experience in that department. You are giving someone who has no experience in the police department the final say. That's
We have
ridiculous.
4 of us that don't have any experience in the police department, the fire department, the engineering department, and we're here to make laws and ordinances on our personal experiences of what we have. So, yes,
I'll look through that number.
we don't know, and that's why we have so many questions.
Well, look, is there a single department in the city that has $330,000 solely allocated to their operational budget? If he's saying there's $330,000 in one department,
Their operations budget is about 500,000. So for him to say that 300,000 of that fell into the bottom is, no.
and so that's why that's saying that, how many other departments are there that meet that criteria that Boyd Bird has indicated he believes is there? How many departments have over $330,000 currently in their operational budget?
Police would be the
It's
biggest.
230, not 320.
Police would be the biggest.
He's saying right here that there's $300,000 in this one department that we would save. Am I not reading that right? It says this will give a savings in the 2013 budget of 323.
Well, and that number is
You're right.
compared to actual, a budget to actual, which is not right.
He's claiming
Okay.
there's 323, and I'm saying that would take his budget from 500. If we save that, he's got to cut by 50%. What happens if I tell you be a good team player, cut your budget by 50%. What happens? I'm asking, what happens on a 50% cut based off of what somebody is telling me are hard numbers?
It's going to be a big lack of service to the community.
So then I have a problem with that number because the math to me is not adding up, because at 1.8 million, that takes every department head in here. And I'm not a fireman, I'm not a policeman, I'm not going to tell them how to run into the building, I'm not going to tell them how to fight the fire, just like I don't appreciate somebody telling me how to frame a house or pour concrete who's done it once in their life. But I do think that that individual can tell me, hey, I want my house to look good and I think my concrete should look good and it, you know, the house should stay together. So I think there can be some oversight. But to me, the number doesn't add up. So at 1.8 million, that takes everybody. If we've had $320,000 in increases, that essentially means that we've trimmed 20% from what they have. Whether they used it to buy pencils, pairs of pants, drills, and that doesn't include the roads, so any of the extra money we've said goes to the roads. I mean, I guess I'm questioning Boyd's number that there's $300,000 in one particular
I think we need to be careful about
department.
making that part of the discussion until we let Rich look at it and tell us about it. Because again, what we're doing, we're giving him his 320 and giving him, that's a fact, that's the way it is. But yet our department heads, who are policemen and firemen and have been over the engineering of the city and have been over these programs, what they're telling us, we're not giving it much weight. I think it ought to be the other way around. I think our people who are in place, who are professionals, are the ones we ought to give the most weight to. It's not that we should ignore this, but as I looked at that, I recognized there's got to be a lot of things here that's got to be plugged in and explained before you see that. And he's, like I say, he's assumed, and I think the biggest thing I saw that to me put a big red X on it is he's making this actual when these are not actual. Any budget is not that way. A budget's your best guess. And as you're looking into a future budget, yeah, sometimes you guess over. And as a matter of fact, I'm always impressed. That's exactly what they tell you to do. If you go look at the budgeting manual that's put out by AIC, they tell you to do that. Overestimate your costs and underestimate your revenue. That's smart practice in budgeting. And that's what I see our people have done. And to me, that's what we've got to do. If we don't do that, I guarantee you we're going to see more and more emergency situations. If we cut our budget back to just skin and bones, there'll come times when the emergencies come up and we're going to have to come up with the funds from somewhere. And I just don't want to see that happen. So, but I think
then we get to evaluate it. If that's what if that's our job, I mean, really, why are we up here? If they're that good and everything runs so good, everything's honest, above board, everything, why do they need us up here?
we're here to set policy. That's why we're here. We need to make sure policy is in place, that they understand what policy is, and when they go to do their budgets or any other thing that happens in this city, that they understand what policy is. And that's what our responsibility as a city council is, to make sure that policy is being plugged in. And if we see places in the budget that our policies are not being followed, we have every obligation to say, hey, wait just a minute, that doesn't meet policy. But I don't see us as being in the minutia and going line item by line item and questioning everything they do, unless it meets that category. If it hits that category of you have not met policy, this is the policy this city has set. There's a reason for that policy, and if you haven't met it, I'm concerned about that. We need to get it to where it's in line. I haven't seen places that our budget heads are not following policy. Like I say, the 3 places that I've written down that could be cut, they're following our policy. They're doing what we asked them to do.
Yeah, policy doesn't govern purchasing things.
It does. That's all. That's the only way we can.
We've already gone around and around on that. That's why we've said no more emergencies, because that goes
No,
against.
you said that. We
Oh, I know.
haven't said that.
Okay.
And I'm just telling you, if we do what you're talking about, Brent, we're going to create a lot more emergency situations. We will, because they're going to come. If we cut those line items back to bare bones, and then that doesn't meet it, Rich has told us, as a city, we can't spend more than the budget says, so when that budget's spent, what do? We've got services we can't shut down. We can't tell Eric, guess what, we're out of money. We're out of money. Don't go to any more fires for the next 3 months. We can't do it. So that can't happen. If that happened, we'd have to put emergency funds in place to fund them for that time.
We don't spend more than we take in as revenue. For example, last year, we budgeted 6.1. We only brought in 6.
Right.
I mean, revenues were down than what the budget.
And that's what's gonna
You gotta
happen.
compare it to the actual.
That's what's gonna happen
And
with
he's
anybody.
comparing it to the 6.1. That's what I would like time to go back to do. Because he's looking at 6.1 saying, oh, you got all this money. Well, that's not true. There's some adjustments that need to be made to those numbers.
Sure. But healthy discussion, and I appreciate where you're coming from, Brent, I do. And I think we have a responsibility to make sure that those things are in place. And if we see places that are concerning, we have every obligation to talk about it. We do.
Are you counting, or do you feel that in taking what they've had and in funding that 320, that isn't tightening those purse strings? Because then there wouldn't have been that money to go out and spend an additional $45,000. Because now it's not even there for them to use. We've already taken it and said it goes there. I mean, to fund the roads, to do what you've requested or what you've suggested, that we go to zero, and to add another $140,000 into the road budget, not taking any new construction rolls, we have to cut from 1.8 million, we have to cut $450,000, which would be a 25% cut. And so even if you did that across every department, I don't see there being 25% out of every department.
Those are
Or is there? I mean, I'm not, based off of what I've been given from certain individuals, I am not seeing 25% waste. 5, 10%, maybe even 15, yes, I agree, and I think that's been there. But I think with the direction they've been given, they've kind of had to already do that. Or do you not feel that they've done it enough?
I'll bring you $300,000 worth of waste.
Even if you bring me 300,000, we just took it. So even, let's say we wasted it. I'll give you that. Let's say we wasted $300,000. That's all now accounted for in a raise, Percy requirements, power, and health. So they can't,
So we'd be even.
right, but then that still doesn't fund the roads. So I'm saying, let's say there was that waste. We just took it and said, it's now here, 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 and here. They can't. Haven't we changed the trajectory?
I think we have. I see what you're saying, Josh, and that's what I've seen happen. I've seen, when you see budgets that are when you go through the line items and you see that the majority of them either have at the final end, which is the impact to our budget, you have a zero or a parentheses, you know that that's happened. They're either not taking any kind of increase or they're taking decreases. And I only found one in every one of the budgets. The increase wasn't connected to energy. It's something that's going to go up next year. Just as sure as we're sitting here, it's going to go up. You better budget some more for it because you're going to have to pay those bills. And that's what I'm saying. So again, Brent, if you have 300,000, you need to bring them. You need to bring them, and it would be good to bring them today because
That would total 600.
next time we meet, we're going to be talking about passing a budget. We're going to need to come to a consensus and pass a budget. So I think that's what our charge starting today is to spend the next 2 weeks coming to grips with what we are comfortable with
We can
supporting.
have another meeting. I mean,
You say what now? I'm sorry.
we can have another meeting.
We certainly
2 weeks
could.
is a long time.
We certainly could. Do we feel like we need to? With what intent? What would we do?
We should be able to, my thoughts are, if you feel there's more line items, I guess those are the ones that I want to hear.
Yeah.
Because so far, if I say, and I'm not going to entirely agree with you that all 320,000 of that was waste. I've rented a backhoe instead of a track hoe to do a job to save money. And it cost me time and materials and labor because by the time I got underneath the surface, I'm pulling out 5-foot boulders. I should have spent the extra money to have the track hoe. But I thought, I'll try to do it this way. So I'm not gonna say that all 320 of that is necessarily waste. But even if I did give you that, we chewed up the 320. Then to get the roads to what we've proposed at what you're asking, we have to come up with another 140,000. I'm just, where else is it? What departments? Is it in the police? Is it in the fire? I mean, with parks, what you've given me, your total was $10,000, roughly, correct?
For what?
If you were to cut 5% more out of your budget, what would that?
16,000.
So that gives me 16.
I've already told you, that's what I would do if we didn't do roads. I said, you give me roads and you designate that, yes.
I think I've
That
thumped the
gives me-
pulpit that there better be a line item.
I know, and that gives the people a bang for their buck, and that's what I'm telling you. If they see that happening, I think they would come to the game and pay the money, the extra.
I'm not even asking for extra. I'm trying to hold it so that you don't get any more. I mean, if you pay more, it will be because your property increased in value. And that's a benefit or a detriment of owning property. If your value goes up, you get to pay more taxes. If it goes down, you get to pay less. We generally prefer that it goes up. But the 1.9 means that
You got $147,000 to go to roads.
Right, and see, that's where we are. At 147, we're about halfway to where we'd need to be if we're gonna get on that 10-year cyclical experience that we'd like to see happen. So that's what we need to decide, is 147 enough? Do we need?
no, we're actually more than that. There's already 30 in there.
That's true.
It's
but-
170
but
if we
it-
were to do
but
the
it
same
need to be
next
closer to
year.
300,000 to get on that 10-year cycle. That's what I'm saying. That would be the goal that we're setting to do, and that's what we need to. That's why I'm saying that's at this point in time, what would we accomplish in another study session?
But you wanted to see the 300,000 waste.
Well, you told us you're going to be 250 today, last Tuesday. You got them?
Yeah, I would
Okay. Let's spend some time talking about those.
have a meeting at 5:30.
If you want to just send it to them, then if we feel like we got another meeting.
That's true.
another
We
meeting,
could do that.
Just send them.
I need 48 hours. I gotta post
Yes.
48 hours.
Well, and
Don't
that's,
call me and tell me you want a meeting tomorrow.
Well, we've got 2 weeks, so.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I just want everybody to
Right.
know
Yeah,
that.
he needs to have 48 hours before we
Brent,
meet.
Brent, you told us a month ago that you had this 250, and you'd bring it, and you'd bring it, and you'd bring it, and you haven't brought it.
Well, just send it to us. Let's look at
Well,
it.
Let it,
And
Brent,
listen, if we do.
send it to us, or
If we feel like
whatever.
that needs a discussion, we'll call him.
Call us and
we'll set a time.
we'll.
Kermit has been discussed. You'll see it when I send you the list. It's been discussed in, I don't know how many of these meetings. I just discussed 2 of them right now.
Well, that's only 2.
But you will,
I didn't want to take the
Brent,
time
will
on
you send
that
it?
where I
Well,
wanted to
if we'd
hear
have
from
taken the
this.
time, we wouldn't.
will you send them to us?
Yes.
That'd be a good, and then like I say, if we feel like that we need to have another discussion of that, we'll get with Rich, and again, what we do, we need to understand legally, we can't meet before 48 hours
I
a week
know
goes
that.
by, okay? Because he's got to post 48 hours, but we have 2 weeks to determine that, so if you can get that to us ASAP, we'll get with Rich and determine.
Yeah, it's not going to affect the budget or anything. It's just going to show you
Sure.
that there is substantial
And it's
actual.
important for us to look at that.
Numbers.
It is. I agree with that, it's important for us to look at it. And like I say, if it
Okay.
requires another meeting, we'll have one.
And I think the heads have done a great job on line items and coming up with the budget the way it is, and to try and cut is not there.
You say you have a meeting at 5:30. If we're discussed to this point, does someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn. With a meeting set for,
We won't set one until you tell us we got another, we could do it and have one next Tuesday.
It's the 3rd Tuesday, so we do have this coming week,
Right.
We have
We've
one
got-
more week.
right? I
We've
mean,
got
I
next
will not be dropping packets off this Friday, next Friday. So we do have that 5th Tuesday this month.
so when would we like to talk about when we're going to meet?
Well, let's look at what I send you and then we'll decide.
Okay,
that's
discussion will
cool.
happen.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.